thank you all so much for having me today. First, good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. It's great to be out here, great to be before you all. And of course, I want to give a special thanks to Carol for inviting me here today to address the Toastmasters group. And also, I want to give a special thanks to Trudy Hall, one of my first supervisors who introduced me to Toastmasters at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City nearly 5 years ago. Now, for me, in middle school, I started my career in competitive speech and debate at the urging of my mother because I love to talk, I love to argue, and she said I had a smart mouth. While she was right about all three of those things, who knew that years later, I would become so at home, not only in public speaking, but also learning so much from the professional speech and debate space. That not only built threads and through lines to things like professional speech writing, but it also provided me with an opportunity to learn how to use my voice and advocate for change in a variety of spaces wherever I might be. It was meeting people like Janet Stovall, who are not common at all in the field of speech writing because she is both Black and a woman. And she often would say that she was a unicorn within the industry. But as I began spending time with more and more speechwriters, I was provided with an opportunity to present in a room full of speechwriters. And Janet inspired the beginning of my remarks because Janet always says that she's a unicorn. But I'm a unicorn with glitter because I'm Black and I'm queer. And while the remark received claps and chuckles throughout the room, sometimes insecurity and internal fears of my own identity caused me to second guess the positivity of those responses, especially when a majority of the audience was a crowd of folks that didn't look like me. However, over those claps and chuckles was a Black queer woman, Cheryl Clark, who yelled, "Hey, there's two of us in here. There are two unicorns with glitter." And in that moment, not only did I feel a bit more at home, but it was a reminder that public speaking has always held an important role in my life. Being in front of audiences has provided me with ample opportunities to speak before audiences of various backgrounds who might not be in tune with the experiences I face due to the various facets of my identity. My identities that create an opportunity to leverage who I am to create a better world for people who share components of my identity. Speaking has taught me about advocating for myself and using my voice as a tool to represent myself in a variety of different arenas. Learning how to speak and advocate for myself became the glue of how I began to understand myself. Because by articulating who I am to others, I was able to understand more about who I am and how my identity can establish and represent itself as an empowering entity for myself and others. So, being this unicorn with glitter, I think it's best that I tell this story through 3 anecdotes. Because first, I'll reflect on my childhood experience of watching and supporting people that look like me and living life as a baby unicorn. Next, I'll describe the learning experiences as I grew up and began to understand the intersections of advocacy and my individual agency. And finally, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of glitter on it as I've continued to do this type of work to have a positive impact for others. So growing up, I was taught early on that there was always a kinship amongst people who have similar identities. As a child, I often pondered why that might be. Sometimes it would be my grandma telling me to root for the Black people that were on Wheel of Fortune when we were watching TV together. Sometimes it would be the excitement in finding another Black family on the 1880 census when we were conducting research on Ancestry.com. Sometimes the kinship could be like the experience I had with Cheryl at the conference, being the only 2 Black and queer folks in a room filled to the brim with people. An author, Paula McLean's interpretation for group consciousness emphasizes that the political beliefs within one's consciousness can take the form of feeling of solidarity among group members. The people on Wheel of Fortune are people that I would never meet and were not people that I personally knew as a family, but there was a feeling of community through the TV screen simply because you were seeing someone that looked like you. Having this unconsciously instilled in me throughout my upbringing presented the opportunity for me to fall in love with the habit of being okay with supporting people who looked like me, because we might face maltreatment in society simply due to the identity that was inscribed upon our skin. While Wheel of Fortune was an innocuous experience that helped teach me how to spell and learn a laundry list of new words, and how to this day, I still use RSTLNE to help me with my daily Wordle, it's important that it shows that the summer after my sophomore year of high school, that I began to understand the direct political agency my identity could manifest. While I was not comfortable or fully in tune with my queerness completely, I was provided with an opportunity and environment that helped cultivate opportunities for me to gain enlightenment to the fluidity, power, and importance of my identity. That summer, I attended the Eddie Conway Liberation Institute in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, ECLI was something amazing in itself, because little do many know, there are things called debate camps where they teach you and that you pay to go for a summer to learn about debate, learn how to learn your skills, and you learn opportunities to read more literature to get you ready for that next season. Now, these camps are extremely expensive, and my family always had money being tight. So I couldn't fund that. I couldn't pay $1,000+ to travel across the country from Kansas City for a debate camp. But luckily, debate camp scholarships actually existed. And so I was able to Google and find some opportunities to ensure that I could receive the chance to attend the debate camp. And while this was my first time flying across country, it seemed like it was going to be not only a life-changing experience, but it taught me really how to not only sharpen my debate skills, but to become a lot more comfortable in my own skin. I also attended ECLI the summer after Freddie Gray was murdered by Baltimore police officers. And growing up, I had experienced the reverberative impact of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown being murdered by vigilantes who had acted without regard for young Black lives. However, being in the community that was directly impacted by the premature and preventable loss of one of their own put life into perspective for me, because it could easily be me or my friends back home, or even my family within the community. And being at ECLI, beforehand, I had participated in protests, and I vividly remember a walkout in middle school where we wore hoodies in support of Trayvon Martin. And while I knew their deaths were wrong, unjust, and unacceptable, I didn't have the vocabulary to quite articulate why they felt so wrong. And I had trouble why they felt so heartbreaking or tragic and infuriating. But ECLI taught me a paradigm and a praxis that allowed me to help understand that these were not simply visceral emotional reactions towards Black death, but my reactions were just, human, and right. ECLI created an environment that helped me develop an understanding of my body and my identity in order to have a summer experience that taught me that my body mattered, and that my agency was worthwhile, and that using my voice could positively impact countless other people. Despite that, all of these years in which I have spent time in the debate space, I was often told that you can't go pro in debate, and that once you finished up with school, that would be it, and that you could use those skills elsewhere. However, my sophomore year in college, meeting amazing speechwriters like Janet Stovall or Cheryl Clark helped me realize that yes, you can go pro in debate, and that there is a lane in which you can get involved, because speechwriting was a profession that provided an opportunity for lots of folks to get involved. Now, for me, despite these years in debate, speechwriting was never mentioned as a profession. We didn't have professional speechwriters judging debate rounds or providing feedback or critique on our speeches. But little did I learn, there's a whole community out here that are writing for leaders in every industry we're a part of, whether they're writing for government officials, whether they're writing for nonprofit leaders, corporate CEOs, athletes, your favorite celebrities, whether it's speeches, op-eds, video scripts, you name it. Everybody and their mama has a speechwriter. And trying to find a way to help that lane meant a lot to me, because being in a room where there weren't many folks that looked like me, I wanted to make sure that I opened the door for others to be a part of this world of speechwriting. I wanted to open the door to make sure that because I was able to get in through the door and slip through the cracks, I wanted to bust that door off its hinges to provide an opportunity for other folks to understand and raise awareness that not only was this a profession for folks, but this was an opportunity for folks to make change and to impact leaders across every sector. And that's why I organized and hosted the first ever Black Speechwriter Symposium at Howard University back in 2019. And this was an opportunity where I brought many superstars from a varying speechwriting fields, whether they were working in nonprofit, whether they were working in corporate or politics, or even running their own speechwriting firm. And I was able to work alongside them to talk about their experiences to students, to raise awareness about professional speech writing. And in doing so, it not only provided an impact for varying speech writing firms to see that this is important work that needs to be done, but it also opened the door for students to look for these internships and for these organizations to show up to our career fairs and simply to let folks know that this is a path that you can take. Because many speechwriters often fall into the field. There's not a direct path for speechwriting, whether they might be a journalist, whether they might have been an English major, political science major, or like me, a legal communications major. There's so many different ways in which you can get into speechwriting. And I want to make sure that professional speechwriting looks representative of our country that we live in, because when you're a leader, you're speaking to a wide variety of audiences, and you have a duty to connect with those audiences. And the only way you can do that is if you surround yourself with folks who have different lived experiences and are able to have different opportunities to share their words, to share their insight, and to share their wisdom that can help shape your paradigm for what you're going to do as a leader and what you're going to say as someone that's a leader. That's why in October 2020, I was proud to co-found and launch Speechwriters of Color. And to this day, we've grown as an organization. In less than 2 years old, we have nearly 400 members of our organization. We've helped folks get political appointments writing for cabinet secretaries, and we've worked with folks to write for different corporate CEOs, nonprofits, you name it. But of course, the work is just beginning, and there's a lot of work to being done. But all I know is that for me, while I started as that baby unicorn with glitter in those speechwriting spaces, not knowing much and entering the world as just a speech and debate competitor, I'm now proud to say that I continue to shine. And I tell you, that glitter just keeps getting brighter. Thank you, y'all.